men hit 45, lost muscle, got brittle bones, brain fog, and their junk shriveled up, do you think doctors would say, well, Bob, let's cut off your balls? Hell no. But for women, they're told go on birth control, fry their uterus with an ablation, or just rip it out entirely.
Hey, you're fat. How about pump some iron and take care of your diet, and let's talk.
It's very protective. You got to look at BHRT. Obviously manages, it's the gold standard, menopause symptoms. It's going to protect against chronic diseases.
Well, I mean, we used to a few thousand years ago not have toilets that flush and running water, but we've changed that. So, all right, we got the recording on, so we all have to behave now. So, hey, special guest today, Davey. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Good deal, Mr. Hokams and Mr. Catherwood, always. So yeah, we're kind of talking about Davey Maher fitness. I met Davey about 4 or 5 months ago, something like that. And, he's been doing a lot of great things out there in the women's health space, a lot of really good content, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, et cetera. And again, Davey Maher Fitness, anyone who wants to follow him or check out his content. But I think it's really practical content. It's very, speaks very well to the audience you're targeting. We'll get into that in a little bit. And just, I think it's, shining a lot of light on some different kind of women's health concerns, issues, et cetera. And I think a lot of women, feel alone, but I think what you're doing, which is really special and pretty cool to see, is in the fitness space, you really seem to cut through a lot of the garbage and gimmicky stuff. And you're more speaking directly to those women about real issues, real concerns they have, and then offering, real solutions, where I definitely appreciate that. I mean, I think Mike and I have went on quite a few rants. Some have not been published yet, but about our thrill with the influencer space and fitness, how excited we are for all that lovely content that's out there. But yeah, we'll kind of kick it off. So I thought, and the other guys can jump in with any questions they have, but my curiosity was kind of, can you tell everybody out there who doesn't know you yet, your target clientele, who you work with? And then I think even more specifically, or more interestingly to me at least, is like, how did you land there? How did you get in this kind of space that you're currently servicing?
Yeah, happy to explain, Joe. Yeah, for sure. So my company's name is Davey Maher Fitness. We work primarily with women over 35 to optimize their health, their hormones, their metabolism, to lose weight permanently. 99% of our clients are women over 35. We do have a small selection of men on our program, but it's that age group. We have clients in 23 countries around the world. So I started my company back in 2011. So that's 14 years ago, gosh. So yeah, I started back in Ireland. I was born and raised in Ireland. So my first 3 clients as a personal trainer back in 2011 were a woman in her 40s, a woman in her 50s, a woman in her 60s. So I was just basically teaching them very basic body weight exercises they can do in the gym without any equipment. So I ended up immigrating to Toronto, Canada. So I started my personal training business there in 2013. And again, like 80% of my clients seem to be that demographic again, women over 35. Why? I honestly believe, I think it's because when it all started in childhood, to be honest. I was closer to my mom. I was closer to my 2 sisters. I had 2 brothers and my dad. I wasn't as close to them. So that was I think that's a factor, is why I'm so passionate about helping women, because ever since childhood, it stems from there. But yeah, I mean, I worked as a personal trainer for a very long time, and I dialed in their training. We never focused on nutrition, I'll be honest, a lot of my clients never lost weight. I had some clients with me for 3 years, and I was just training them 3 times a week. They loved my training methods, but I'll be honest, they weren't maybe 50% were losing weight, but I didn't teach them about nutritional periodization or calorie deficit or reverse dieting. So I started my online kind of coaching in 2016. European leads were reaching out to me on Instagram and Facebook, And once I dialed in their nutrition online, they were getting ridiculous results in 8 to 12 weeks. And I was thinking, okay, my personal training clients have been with me 3-4 years. They're not losing a pound, but some of them. And then I'm getting the results online by just making sure they adhere and implement their nutrition, because that's 90% results, in my opinion. So I was like, I'm onto something here. And I had 25 clients as a personal trainer. I hit a ceiling. I couldn't grow. So then the online thing is kind of an opportunity for me to work with more people. So to cut a long story short, when I did dial in my female clients' nutrition and training, 80% of the time we were getting results, but then just like 20% of clients, it used to wreck my head. I was like, why aren't they not getting results? They're adhering, they're implementing, they're doing everything right.
Right.
But then it's like, there's something else going on here. I have to get to the root cause of what's going on. That's when I went down the whole rabbit hole of hormone health. Like, I started learning about pharmacology, endocrinology, like PCOS, Hashimoto's, insulin resistance, menopause, you know yourself. It's not as simple for a woman over 40 to eat less and move more. There's so much more going on.
Right.
That's why. So that's like kind of a long-winded story, but I hope that gave you some input of what we do and what I stand for.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. I was curious to how you got started in that, but then, as you're kind of evolving through that, just some common themes that you see with women. Like, I know one of the things I think we've talked about before on here is we've seen, a lot of women that are trying to get started, but they're not super genetically gifted, or they have some other, limiting factors, if you will, that need to be addressed outside of just, like you said, move more, eat less, to help them kind of propel forward with those results. And I think a lot of them feel like failures if, they have family member A that's down 40 pounds from the same program and they're down 3 or whatever the case may be. You just see a lot of variances. Like, are there any common themes you see with, I know it's a very painting with a broad brush here, but just kind of curious to like just some general themes maybe you see in this type of, demographic of women and some potential barriers and obstacles they have and just their mental state.
I think the female body over 45 is very stress sensitive. I'm seeing that every single woman, a vast majority of women that I talk to on a call every day are taking care of their elderly parents in their 70s, 80s. They're taking care of their own kids. They're cooking for their husband. They have a high performing job. They're doing all these high stress activities. They're putting everyone else in their life before them. They find it very difficult, and it's understandable to put themselves first.
Sure.
It's because stress plays a huge impact on fat loss, in my opinion. When the body is under extreme stress from under eating unintentionally or overtraining from excessive cardio, or like, life stressors, like imagine taking care of your mom, dad who are not healthy, and then your own kids. It all adds up. So that's what I'm seeing every single day.
I'm really, really excited that you brought that up. I think it's very meaningful because it's, at least look from an outsider's point of view, this is just something like I've observed anecdotally, is that man or woman, you look at, when I was a little kid, I was thinking back to being in Little League, 10 years old, right? I had plenty of friends whose dads were cops or were contractors. They were regular, they were not Rockefellers, right? I did not know people who had 2-income households. Everyone I knew in 1989 had a one parent working and one parent stayed home, right? If there it was a 2-parent household, right? So now I literally don't know the opposite. And I have some friends that are wildly wealthy and everyone in the house has some job, a lot of them very demanding jobs on top of dealing with the children, dealing with whatever outside kind of cursory stressors they may be. And I can just as a dummy who doesn't know anything about it from an in-depth chemical standpoint, can only imagine what the cortisol and the imbalances must be from people just getting by, not talking about the most extreme situations when you're dealing with like death in the family. Just day-to-day lifestyle for most Americans is probably internally chaotic.
Yeah, I think the modern man, guys, I know you Justin would know this, like testosterone levels that are at an all-time low for 20-something men and women, like compared to like in the 40s. Like I think I read somewhere, maybe I'm wrong here, that a man in their 20s have the same testosterone levels as men in their 60s.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, but it comes down to lifestyle, and we live in that age now of AI and instant gratification and social media. It's just completely different world we're living in now than.
Well, and also I think one of the things too is that because of the AI, the access to information, the extremes of the situation distort our view of it, because the average there by any metric, whether it be grip strength, whether it be time in a mile, whether it be testosterone, hormone levels, a regular Joe in 1935 was way more badass than the regular Joe in 2025. Not even worth comparing. I think the average body weight for an American man in 1940 was like 11%, and the average testosterone was really high. And dudes just commonly in PE class in high school, you would do 15 pull-ups and run a 7-minute mile. The problem is that the extremes of that level, there's never been faster people. There's never been people who jump higher. There's never been people who lift more weights. There's never been people. All of the top tier are so far and away better than anyone in any generation before, even 10, 15 years ago, that if you're like a high school kid, you're looking at that going like, well, Steph Curry could beat the entire NBA of 1975. So we have to be advanced, right? And I was like, yeah, he is. But the rest of you are not. The average guy, the average gal is so much, has deteriorated so greatly.
Yeah, I mean, I think to what you're saying, Dave, I think it's an important point. When you look at women, like I heard it was kind of a joke, but it was kind of a little more of a, it was definitely steered more towards like an empowering woman speaker, but she used really good humor and real life situations that I found eye-opening early in my marriage. We have 2 young daughters, and the example was this. I'll set it up. So essentially, she's the busy executive, husband works the part-time at the time, whatever reason professionally they're in this transition. Husband takes the kids to school and drops them off, right? So constantly there's snarls and there's looks and that in her storytelling, but short along, it's blue shirt day. And so dad takes his girls to school to drop them off in blue shirt day. Well, they're not wearing a blue shirt. So as the teacher comes over, that like helps kid get out of the car, comes and goes, oh, looks down, oh sweetie, mommy forgot to put out your blue shirt for you this morning. And like it's like that type of like social pressure, even to where it's like, no, like dad had ownership, dad screwed up, and it's all good, but it's like that's that pressure that I feel on women. I mean, again, it's kind of like a small nugget of an example, but you still see that a lot where there's these expectations on them when in our society with 2 working parents, there's going to be some more shared responsibilities. One more point to that, which I actually did get blamed for, and I took ownership of. The first time I took my daughter to child center, it was at Lifetime. So it was going in, get my workout and do my deal. And men's shirts wear the buttons. They're in the front. Women's dresses wear the buttons in the back. So guess what I did with her dress?
Oh.
I had it buttoned up in the front, and all the child care workers are just smiling ear to ear at me. And they don't know they want to tell me, but they're like, and finally I go, what's going on? And they're like, you realize you put her dress on backwards? I just died, So I did. At least I was blamed for that one, and my wife didn't have to blunt that, because some guys I think would keep their mouth shut and say, "Oh man, my wife got her dress. I just put her in the car," and So it is kind of interesting. Some of those you mentioned like external pressures, especially as ebb and flows in like work situations, stress situations, family situations. So just kind of curious. Overall, like I said, just wanted to add to that. Because it's definitely something that I think is out there relative to that. And like I'm curious, like, what are you seeing when they come in to see you? You know, what's their like mental state like?
The clients, the female clients, Joe.
Yeah, as they're coming in, you know,
Oh,
like what's
oh,
kind of their mental state with some of the stressors and just life things that they're trying to do.
I hear it on a daily basis. I mean, women out there are struggling, and there's a huge lack of education out there on women's health and on menopause health. They're reaching out to their doctors, and I have great respect for the medical doctors out there, but they're not getting the correct treatment, in my opinion. They're getting fobbed off. There's a lot of medical gaslighting out there for women. I mean, I hear it on a daily basis. Like they can't sleep, they've insomnia, they've brain fog, low libido, they're losing their muscle, sarcopenia, like they're losing their bone density. We look at labs, and you know, cholesterol is high, insulin resistance is high, inflammatory markers are high. So what are doctors doing? In the vast majority of cases, they're giving them like a statin or sleeping pills or anti-anxiety, SSRIs, drugs for osteoporosis. It's going. I think it could be easily solved in a different way, like possibly prescribing some, you know, bioidentical HRT. It's not for everyone, but I just think is that maybe 1-2% of doctors would actually give a woman who has heavy periods, like they might give her natural progesterone to help with that. Instead, they prescribe birth control. Like I've talked to women like in their 50s, they're on birth control. It's completely their choice, but I don't think it's the correct strategy.
Yeah, I think you had a really good post. I think a lot of people agreed with it too, because it's close to 23,000, just shy of 23,000 likes. So I'll just pull this up. Overall, if men hit 45, lost muscle, got brittle bones, brain fog, and their junk shriveled up, do you think doctors will say, well, Bob, let's cut off your balls? Hell no. But for women, they're told go on birth control, fry their uterus with an ablation, or just rip it out entirely. I think that I've actually, you know, seen that in people in my family have that, you know, women in my family have this, you know, that same kind of approach. So I think this kind of hits you in the face when you read it, but it's definitely kind of that experience out there. You know, as far as what you're describing in the medical field, I think it's kind of well articulated to the point.
Yeah, it's a bit extreme, but it's I think it's from my experience, just talking to thousands of women down through the years, a lot of people relate to that. We had ridiculous amount of shares and saves, etc. But I think a lot of people are not saying this. You know, we got hate as well. I mean, don't get me wrong. Just we get people reaching out. You don't know what you're talking about. You're a man. What do you know about menopause? I get it on a daily basis. So
Sure,
you can't please everyone, but that's my genuine thoughts.
I'd be interested to hear all three of you gentlemen's take on it too, because I see it also. You get a very clear picture of it when you're talking about training people in like a physical capacity, right? I think there's a larger social component on top of like the medical industry and the problematic environment there. Absolutely, it goes without saying, but I think there's a social component too, because if you're training someone in the gym, let's say you're doing incline dumbbell bench press and you have a male client and he says, I think I could have got a couple more, but it really started to burn. None of us would hesitate to be like, hey, grow a pair, you puss. I don't know how I deal with it. I only have one child and she's a girl. I have a daughter. And there's been numerous times where she's been really upset about something. And I go, if I had a son, I would be like, hey, fucking, come on, put your big boy pants on. Stop crying. This is embarrassing for you. You need to suck it up. Let's go. And not being a jerk about it, but there's just something about where it seems very reasonable. It seems very authentic to just deal with men and challenge that sense of courage, that sense of pushing through and being resilient. And I don't know if there is that on a massive scale, even in the medical industry. I don't know if there is that same ease of doing that with women. If you have a woman who's 45 years old and she's saying, oh, I'm feeling listless, I'm feeling like that. It would be, I would imagine, pretty easy for most male doctors to go like, hey, you're fat. How about pump some iron and take care of your diet, and let's talk. If you need some testosterone, you need some blah, 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 fine. No one's saying that to a chick. No one's going to say that to a woman.
Yeah, or it's just part of aging. You know, it's like, no, well, I mean, we used to a few thousand years ago not have toilets that flush and running water, but we've changed that. So, you know, yes, it was a part of aging a few thousand years ago, but they also didn't have all the other stuff we're talking about, environmental toxins, stressors, and nonsense, to where they were a lot aging, you know, generally, I mean, healthier from like a hormone standpoint. It's like, we have ways to replace that. We have ways to assess that now. Science has advanced. We don't have to just say, well, you know, but curious to what everybody else thinks to that.
I think just the guidelines around what's available for women is kind of the issue. You know, they're much more complex. It's easier for any of us to go get a free and total testosterone done by our provider, to get all of your sex hormones looked at from as a woman, and then get that done in the appropriate time frame. I don't know about any of you, but you know, you go to the doctor and they don't even tell you to fast for your labs. They're not going to tell a woman to go in her luteal phase to get her labs done, and they're not going to check the appropriate markers. So I don't really fault anybody in the medical system. I just don't think they have the tools available and the resources for, you know, continuing education. And they can do those things, but all of those things are elective. And you know, you do meet a lot of practitioners who are more progressive and continue to learn about the most updated science. And fortunately, a lot of us are able to work with those types of doctors. But going to your primary care, you know, even for me as a man, I'm like, hey, can we look at this? Can we look at that? It's almost like pulling teeth. So I think for women, they just don't have the tools available. And then the other piece is maybe some people are not willing to challenge their doctor. So what I always tell people is like, hey, we all are paying a copay. If you don't like what your doctor's saying, go give somebody else your business. You know, you should be an advocate for your own health. And that's really why I like working with women, is kind of to empower them to have those conversations, and then to challenge them. Mike, to your point, is like everybody responds differently to coaching. I could probably bark at any of you if you were my client and you would take it well, but that doesn't always work for, you know, every man or every woman. So just figuring out how you can push somebody and challenge them at their own capacity. And I call it almost like a love language. Like, how can I be really hard on you, but not be overbearing? So, you know, I guess verbiage and the way I would approach that is different, but those would be things that I think about. The other piece I think a lot about with women's health as a whole is just being able to know more about your lab markers. I feel like women, a lot of times, everything looks fine. There's nothing wrong with me. So they don't ever want to change anything because all the lab markers are quote unquote normal, even though they have subclinical thyroid function or their borderline insulin resistance. Is like, yeah, I've been to 3 different doctors. You know, everybody probably has an OB and then they have a PCP, and both of them are going back and forth and saying you're healthy. And then you meet with somebody like one of us and we look at your labs, you're like, whoa, actually, I see a bunch of stuff out of alignment here. And then that throws a lot of confusion for that person because we hold the medical system so high. And I'm not knocking any doctors, but I just feel like we turn to them to answer all of our questions. But doctors don't know everything. There's people like us and they specialize in specific areas, and it's good to have a team around you to work. So those would be my thoughts around, women's health and things that women can do to be more proactive about their health.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to mention one thing there about you said something I think is pretty interesting and important. Just at a high level, can you just explain for people out there why in women's health it's important what phase in their cycle that they get their blood drawn versus men? Because I do think that that's something that, like you mentioned, if you're getting that tested and you have no idea where you are, you know, that's problematic in the interpretation and such. But can you kind of shed a little more light on that?
Yeah. So first off, all of us, we're simple creatures. You know, we have our sex organs. We pulse testosterone really high in the morning, and then it kind of gradually goes down throughout the day. And we're on this 24-hour clock, and we're simple. Like guys, you know, if you can't balance your hormones, that's a whole different topic. But when we look at women's health is over the month, we're going to have different phases, or they're going to have different phases of hormones. Depending on their symptoms, we may want to look somewhere in that luteal phase to see, hey, are we making adequate amounts of progesterone? If you're having PMS, PMDD symptoms, are these hormones in appropriate ratios? We can look at that on blood serum. We can look at follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, progesterone, estrogen. Even though a lot of times those may look normal, we even have further diagnostics to look at. We can look at metabolites. We can look at stool analysis to figure out, are we conjugating and passing our estrogen? That's their primary hormone. So we really want to be fully encompassing and looking at how are they excreting hormones. As us, our driver's testosterone, we may make a little bit of estrogen. As long as we don't screw that ratio up, we're okay. As they're just so much more complex than us. I hope that answers your question. No, it's a very long-winded.
No, yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, and it's depending, if we don't know where they are in their phase when it was pulled. Sometimes you can tell, right? But you may be looking at one phase that looks like another phase, I guess, if the dysfunction or regular, if it's off so much. So I think it's the timing is, I guess, from getting back to. But appreciate that.
Yeah.
Davey, anything you would add there, just kind of relative to your approach?
Yeah, I mean, menopause, it is an inflammatory phase of life. A lot of people might not think about that. I do talk to some people and they say, oh, I have no symptoms. However, I ask, like, have you done any comprehensive blood work to see what's going on? Because even though you feel good, and then they might go and get blood work done, and LDL is sky high, triglycerides are sky high, they're insulin resistant, their CRP, inflammatory markers are high. They might go for a bone density scan, they have osteopenia. So even though they might feel great, they have to be, that's the importance of comprehensive blood work. Unfortunately, majority of people don't have access to comprehensive blood work.
I think the other thing is just being aware of, if you are, at least in the United States, we all have access to comprehensive blood work. It is an out-of-pocket expense, but, there are plenty of clinics, First Optimal. You can go in and get labs done. You have to pay for those, but it's better than chasing your tail through your doctor. And I don't know about any of you. When I was younger, I wanted an elaborate panel done for my doctor. He's like, sure, I'll do it for you. And then I got like a $3,000 bill in the mail. And I was like 22. I'm like, I don't have $3,000 like this. I'll never do blood work again. So more times than not, it's better just to pay out of pocket a couple $100. You get an elaborate panel, and then you're not trying to fight with your doctor. A lot of men and a lot of women, your doctor will say, oh, you don't need that lab panel. You're 25. Like, there's nothing wrong with you. And then if you do get those markers, you could end up like me and, have a huge bill later in the mail that I probably paid off over the course of 5 years, because when you're young, that's a lot of money.
Right.
Sure is. Yeah. I was curious too, Davey, do you find just more of a general pushback from females when it comes to bioidentical hormones, just because it seems a little bit more foreign? I know that just anecdotally, actually, the idea of women getting hormone replacement therapy in my personal life, women have looked at me like I recommended that they get heroin, whereas men very commonly understand that testosterone levels fluctuate as we age, and that hormones become a big deal.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere like that 80% of women have been on some form of birth control over their lifetime. I think it all stems from the 2002 Women's Health Initiative study that basically they came out and said at a press conference, they said that HRT causes cancer. Mm-hmm. Literally overnight in the United States of America, the prescriptions for HRT went from 20% of women way down to like 2 or 3%, literally overnight. But the same organization came out 18 years later and literally just said we were wrong. It was debunked, it was misinformation. So the study was actually done on women in their 60s who were already in a very low hormone state. And the type of hormones they used were synthetic hormones. Progestin, it's not progesterone.
Right.
And The other one was it was taken from the pregnant urine of a horse. So they weren't bioidentical hormones they were using. So I think slowly women are more aware now. That's what I'm trying to do on my page. I'm trying to kind of educate my audience on, it's very protective. You got to look at BHRT. Obviously manages, it's the gold standard for managing, excuse me, menopause symptoms. It's going to protect against chronic diseases. Like studies have shown that BHRT reduces the number one killer in the world, cardiovascular disease, by 50%. That's huge. Like it reduces osteoporosis, hip fractures by 35%. Studies have shown it reduces Alzheimer's by up to 50%. Like this is longevity. This is protection against the brain, the bone, the heart. It's quality of life. Like it's to me, it's a no-brainer. But again, we have to respect the people who are maybe not. It's not for everyone. It's not for everyone. Hormone treatment, but sure, I think it can give a better quality of life and longevity and protection against chronic diseases.
Mike, I think the other thing is all of us as men, we go to the gym and it's normal for us to talk about testosterone and taking it, and a large majority of it. So it's normalized. I go to the gym and everybody wants to talk about testosterone. I feel like as women start to use hormones and they're given appropriately, that's the other issue I have, that they tend to be mismanaged. The more success women have with that, I think that will gain in their social circles. And just like it does in ours, whatever we're doing, we're all kind of talking about being more masculine and doing things as guys, and testosterone's a piece of that. I think as women start to get the right care that they need from doctors and they have success, that will just kind of amplify over time. But for us, again, it's so easy to input testosterone and feel better. We can see the immediate benefits. Is with women, it's a fine-tuning process with hormones, and it's a little bit more delicate. But there are people who can do it really well, and more women need to have access to that so they can have success. And I think that will bleed into friends and family. All of the women in my family, mother-in-law, stepmother, mother, father-in-law, father, all are on hormones. They're all thriving. They all feel awesome. And when I didn't know anything about hormones, my mom was declining significantly. And being able to upregulate her hormones has improved her life, and she's moving better than she did when I was in high school. So it's really cool to see the progression of that. It just needs to be done right.
I'm glad you mentioned that component too, is that, and Davey, I would love to get your take on it as someone who's seen it over kind of a more broad spectrum. I have not seen, I only know one person personally that is an old, above 35-year-old female who is really using HRT, and it was life-saving for her. It changed her life completely. But all of my male friends, and I'm 45 years old, so I'm kind of in the prime demo, and I hang out with wannabe alpha dudes, So I'm around a lot of HRT, and all of them, before we start discussing body fat, muscle mass, it's the mental health benefit. Everyone goes to, they're like, I can't believe how much less depressed and how much less pessimistic I am about things just from getting my hormones corrected. And I would love to know. I think the fallout is so much greater with older females. I would wonder if the upside is also greater too.
Yeah, I think there's a fine tuning process for sure. I've seen a lot of cases where women were they never got any blood work done from the start, and they were given estradiol only or testosterone only, and they never hear from their doctor again. So patience is key. You have to titrate, you have to customize. Everyone's different. So it may take 3 months to really fine tune, dial in the customization. By 6 months, the person should be feeling optimal health hormones for sure. But for men, it's just testosterone. For women, it's 3 different hormones as well. So it's a bit more customized and
just another one of those areas where women are just more complicated than we are.
Right. Yeah, and the interplay, right, of the 3. I mean, I've heard of women not having their blood drawn, not having their hormone levels checked, but they're being treated for menstrual cycle irregularities, heavy bleeds, etc. And one of the options on the table, albeit elective, was an ablation, a uterine ablation. And it's like, can we pause for a minute and just pop the hood and maybe take a look at what's going on versus just going in there and just, playing tag with uterus here? Like, we're just zapping away. Like, I don't, it was just mind blowing to me that, we hear those stories a lot. And I mean, again, like I said, it was elective, and yes, it's going to definitely, change some of those end results, but it's not really fixing the root cause. And that person's still going to have the other issues associated with that estrogen dominance. And, the other, that's just one thing. That's just like one byproduct of all those hormone irregularities. The rest of it's not being treated. So again, does it have its case? Sure. I'm sure there's some application there. But can we, let's, I'm not saying all people who do that, but you can still pause and just try to look at, is there an imbalance between progesterone and estrogen? Can we adjust that? Can we lower body comp, maybe lower that insulin resistance, all the other cascading effects that cause those hormone irregularities? Can we change them through getting you kind of going in the right direction? And that's what comes to mind to me is, I am curious, you're dealing with that person that comes in, they're, obese, maybe obese class 2, they're depressed, they've tried and failed 7 times, they're feeling beat up, and they happen to see some catchy post you did, or whatever the case may be, for whatever reason they're talking to you. I'm wondering, like, how do you get them to give that little bit of hope to engage in a program? And then B, what does this start look like? Because I do feel like we do this, we're around this all day. We could spat off, I was going through we do like a treatment, a supplement, and lifestyle modifications. And I put that plan together and I looked at it. I was like, this is a lot for a new person. Like, this is what they need to do. This is still a lot. So I'm just curious, like, how you approach it. Kind of when they come in, how do you get them to engage? And then secondary, like, how do you approach phasing them into a progressive program? Because you're generally working with women, anywhere from 4 to 6 to 12 months when they start. I know a lot of them renew. I'm just curious, like, what does that onboarding and kind of path look like, and with all the other obstacles we're talking about?
Yeah, I think you have to kind of paint a long-term picture. Like, if a person is coming into the program, they've tried all the cookie cutter approaches, the cheap, quick fixes. I'm very blunt and say, look, what worked for you in the past over the last 20 years is clearly not working. So it's probably got you in this mess in the first place.
Sure.
So healing your body, it takes time. Because we're not going to get results. It might take 6 to 12 months to see some results. So they have to understand that, all the 20 years of under eating or, bad health, it's not going to be changed overnight. So that's why we did introduce a 12-month program last year, which helps, keeps them in the program longer.
Right. Do you find people coming in are a little more overwhelmed at the start? What does that look like as far as, I'm going from doing absolutely nothing to one of these programs? Like, how do you peel that back and kind of get them introduced to it?
I'm seeing a lot of fear of self-doubt, self-sabotage. Like, we live now on the online space. There's a lot of people getting scammed, believe it or not. A lot of coaches out there that shouldn't even be coaches, in my opinion. So buyer sophistication is at an all-time high. Trust is at an all-time low in the online space. So we have to do something different. It might take 2-3 calls to get some people in, just to gain trust. Trust is huge. I'm finding just like, we've clients, they have to follow us for a long time. Like, this long form content we're doing now helps. Before they get on a call, like, we send the long form content on YouTube, PDFs, website. It all creates that certainty, that trust on their end, but it's needed. And then when they get on the call, they're ready. Like, we had a woman come in a few days ago. She's ready to buy. Like, I've watched everything. I'm following you, Davey. Right. I didn't know who you are, but now I actually follow all your content. I believe in you. I trust you.
I couldn't agree more that it's absolutely necessary. one of the problems I see globally, and not just in the fitness industry, not just in the health industry, so few people under a certain age are willing to engage in any long form information.
Yeah.
And I'm not, this is not a derogatory statement. I'm not talking, all you college kids, whatever, if you come across this, I'm not talking crap. Your TikTok brain, you have no attention span. It's just a statement of fact that people have, as they've started to grow accustomed to digesting information at such a much more rapid rate, I do get concerned that I think what Davey's point is excellent and very true, that this detailed and really patient and measured examination of things is incredibly important, especially when you're talking about your health. And people are not, they don't want a 20-second TikTok with like really bold fonts is what people are looking for. And I wonder what do you do to combat that?
On TikTok, I've had reels on TikTok like go viral, millions of views, but it's like maybe a 5-second video, 10 seconds, but the quality of video equals the quality of leads. They're all poor quality leads, if I can say that. Like quality leads they actually would watch this, take time out of their day to consume long form content. It's coming back in.
Good.
That's the way it's going. You need to I'm telling you, we've seen this on TikTok. Who cares about the amount of views? It's vanity likes, engagement.
Yeah.
No one gives a shit.
Right. No, I think it's a great point, because I used to, this is back years ago, but we had, we did a lot of training, and it was the most expensive kind of show in town, if you will. But we had people with advanced degrees and more complex training and really a science-backed approach. And we used to say like an educated lead is our best friend. So we're like, we have to, if they're not willing to educate themselves for the appointments, and you're getting some resistance, don't waste too much time. I would say conversely, all the, check out my video, squats and grow your butt type training program, yada, yada, yada. Like they don't like it when the client is educated, and you can see it clearly in their content, because they're saying something, but they're not citing it. They're not citing their reference. They're not calling it out. Like, did you know that they say like, if you eat peanuts, like your estrogen is going to go here? It's like, what the hell are you talking about? Right? Like get out of here. But so I always kind of look at that, and I think you're dead right. Cause like, even when we're seeing, what we do is more, we help kind of prepare a client to get into our medical ecosystem, and we're spending a lot of time with them. But if they're not willing to pre-read stuff and look at it, I've been kind of just coaching my team to like, we're here to help people. And sometimes helping them is being a little blunt and saying, hey, you didn't read this, you didn't go over it. I want to pause here. Is this something you really seriously want to do? Because this is the easy stuff. This is the small part. It's actually kind of a funny thing I used to say when we were in a consultation with clients in training way back in the day. My little snot-nosed punk, I was in my early 20s and thought, there's no reason why you shouldn't be super fit. What do you mean? But as they would come in, I would say, and they would complain about the expense. I'd look at the husband and be like, you have no idea. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, dude, this is a fraction of what's going to be spent if she drops 40 pounds. Like a girl's got to accessorize, my man. Like, come on now. And like, that would like break the ice and kind of get them in. But, I think it's about, the work and doing the pre-work and being engaging, because that's something we talk a lot about with our, as they're kind of onboarding, become a patient, is like, hey, you're in the driver's seat here. Like, this is, the more engaged you are, the more you can get out of it. And so I'm glad to hear that, a lot of your content, you're seeing those women that are, going through and actually spending time on the long form. They're reading what you're sending them, because again, I'll just repeat it. Like, an educated lead is like your best friend if you're doing stuff that actually works, has some rationale and a plan to it. If you're gimmicky and, just buzz and, kind of turn and burn and template type approach, you don't like that, and you're going to attract that customer who doesn't like it. And unfortunately, what that does to the rest of us that are really trying to help people and roll our sleeves up is, they think you're like that, and it kind of paints that light. And like, I don't want to read this BS. Like, what is all this nonsense? I've already been through blah, 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 but it's like, that's not really what works. And the people have to be educated to kind of understand the why behind it. I never like it when someone blindly is just kind of agreeable too much early on. I get red flags. I'm like, okay, when doc goes to change your protocol, we ask you to do these, increase your steps from this to this, or, hey, you're not hydrated enough in your blood work, we're seeing this and this, or whatever the case may be. Are they the ones just going to walk away and say, yeah, okay. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Not if you don't understand the why behind it, So I think it's a great point. I know, Mike, you had some other things relative to like maybe other women that are more in a better spot, I guess I would say, than maybe some of Davey's clients and things, or, the influencer chick or whatever. You were kind of talking a little bit about that beforehand, and you had some thoughts or questions you wanted to share there. I wanted to tag you in on that topic as a whole.
I am. It's really important to me, and I want to talk about this. I also am I feel like I'm walking on thin ice because I'm not a combative, prickly guy. I'm not that guy. I'm not a keyboard warrior. I don't want to engage. I'm not even outwardly political for that reason. Not because I don't have interest in it. I don't have any desire to get in an argument with people. It doesn't seem appealing. But one area where I have found myself like really getting angry at people is this kind of holistic health world, and how it has much more lately, it's bled into kind of the gym and fitness culture much more. And I have either been involved in conversations or overheard, particularly like the kind of the yogi, holistic health lady tell women, and I've literally heard these words said: bioidentical hormones are toxic. That was the words that came out, and I said, pump the brakes. Do you know what the word toxic means?
Mm-hmm.
Is that not just something that you hear a lot? And she says, no. Well, and then we get into this argument. I was like, you understand, poisonous to the system to either the debilitating or deadly, fatal extent. That is this. These are toxic, even though they're in my body right now and yours. They're already in there, but they're toxic somehow. And she got so mad at me. And the same thing goes with like prescription of diets and things, where I'm starting to see like the comeback. For a while, like the carnivore thing was real big and stuff. And I'm starting to see some, I was like, okay, well, seeing women eat whole eggs and steak, I have no problem with that, right? But now I've definitely started to see like these women 50 pounds overweight, and they're eating celery sticks for their snack. And I'm like, you're gonna be fucking starving in 30 minutes. You're gonna stop at McDonald's. Like right. What? And what is going on hormonally with you right now? And she's like, oh, my trainer online told me this. And look at her body. And so I just curious, like I've definitely seen, like, for a while it was the big booty chick, and then for a while it was like the primal hormone chick, like the primal CrossFit-y type chick. Now I'm really starting to see this almost resurgence of the mid 80s Jane Fonda aerobics and let's extreme diet thing, and a real push against anything seemingly masculine or from a gym culture. And it really seriously angers me to the point that I kind of will become that prickly guy. And my question to you is like, what's the best way to approach dealing with it on a behavior sense in a healthy way, so that they can get the message in a more healthy way?
You want to take that, Davey?
Yeah. I was just thinking, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. I mean, that's the one thing I've learned online. I mean,
except about my looks. No one's really.
You are pretty handsome.
There's one opinion about this.
One opinion about that.
I'll let Justin handle this one. What's your thoughts?
Well, I'd like to chime in on why he's going to have Justin handle this one. I think it's important for everyone to acknowledge this. Davey has such an awesome accent. He can say whatever he wants to whoever he wants, and he gets away with it. So I think that's unfair, Davey. So we're just going to call that out right now for all the listeners out there, that having a sweet accent allows you to say whatever you want to whoever you want, whenever you want.
Yeah, I know. My accent is, gosh, you should have seen me when I first came to Canada, guys, 12 years ago. My talk, like, nobody could understand me. But anyway, that's going off the point.
No,
that sounds
go ahead.
Like
Justin.
most people in my state in Arkansas. I'm like, what did you say? Can you open your mouth a little bit more? I'm like, I have no idea what you're saying to me, buddy.
It's also ironic, Dave, because there's plenty of Canadian friends I have that I can understand a word they're fucking saying. So
they're going to be the 51st state. Canada.
Oh yeah.
According to Trump, yes.
Well, what's the joke? If you want to tick off a Canadian, how do you do that? Step on their foot. sorry. Anyways, I had a good Canadian friend, and he shared that with me. So I think that's my disclaimer, so I don't get hammered in the comments from good old Canadian listeners.
Sorry, Canada.
I love Canadians.
What was the question? I think Justin, you're going to pick up a question there that I got as derailed.
About like obsessed dieting and potentially changing mind frame around that. Am I
Yeah,
on
and
the
just
right track?
like honestly, like where I see there's always going to be combating voices in fitness. That's never going to end, and it's always has been the case. It's just the voices are a lot louder now with social media and whatnot. But if someone's going to propose high intensity over high volume, if someone's going to propose intervals over long duration aerobic stuff, it's like, what does that matter to me? When this kind of faux holistic health world gets in the way of real, actual, meaningful visceral health, that I really have a problem. And I was wondering, like, what's the best way to go about that without also sounding like just an opinionated asshole?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think like some of the things it goes back to educating, I think is like some of the most important things of like why you don't want to just eat celery. I know that's an extreme, but it's like kind of letting somebody know the importance of micronutrients on top of macronutrients from like even a cellular level. So if you're deficient in zinc and magnesium, you probably aren't going to make your antioxidants to support your immune system. We're looking at like basic level stuff of why you need food. So that's usually what I tell people is like, you need at least your minerals. I meet a lot of guys and gals who we want to supplement our way out of everything now.
Right.
It's like, oh, there's a supplement for that. I take greens, I take magnesium. I'm like, well, you can't just eat McDonald's and protein shakes and use all these supplements to try to backfill your nutrients. Your body is intelligently designed to take cholesterol and make it into hormones and use your minerals to help support enzymatic function with the immune system. So really it goes back to educating. And then the other piece I think about with coaching as a whole is not everybody wants to get well. You can have the best plan, you can teach people, but I know so many men and women who like to live in turmoil. And that's something they just have to figure out on their own. So that's what I always tell people when I have a really combative client. I'm like, hey, I'm here to help you at whatever capacity. If you're not ready to do these things, maybe we can pivot and work on some other things that will help us get along the way. But I'm seeing you're not being consistent with whatever, if it's nutrition or steps or if we're working on stress management, or if you're not ready to do those things, you have to let me know. A lot of times I just refuse to work with somebody at a point where they're not willing to let their guard down and get out of their own way. I've been there, it's like a pity party for Justin. I'm just going to mope around and be sad. And, my dad used this analogy, if pigs can lay in shit, you can do that if you want as well, but you're not going to get anywhere. So it's like, put in your boots on and get to going and do what you need to do. So I think the other thing with a really good coach is being able to frame that for somebody and doing that in stages because to Joe's point, it's almost drinking out of a fire hose with a lot of programs. They're like, we're going to give you 50 things and you're going to be on this crazy diet and you're going to be working out 6 times a day. I'm like, this lady has never even exercised once in her life. Like, let's just get her walking a little bit. Let's get some water in her. And I want you to eat 4 ounces of protein 3 times a day. Could you do that for me? If she does that for a week, she'll probably lose weight. And we didn't need any of that other fancy shit. It's just like, we just work at systemized approaches and then whatever she's willing to do, because that's the other piece. You have to be willing to do those things. And again, a lot of people just aren't willing to do those small pieces that accumulate to big wins overall.
Yeah, the foundations of health, I think you're referring to there. Like, it could be a cultural thing too. I mean, 80% of United States adults have metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance.
I'd like to pull something up actually from your Instagram, just to kind of get into that, because you mentioned how many countries right now? 23 countries you have clients spread across, ish.
Yeah, around that.
So
hey guys,
I'm just curious.
I gotta run. I didn't realize it was so late.
All right, thanks, Justin.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good
Justin.
talking
See
to
y'all.
you.
Yeah, good seeing y'all. Bye.
Yeah.
So just this chart here showing the obesity rates that you posted on your Instagram. So I thought this was pretty interesting. And is that kind of, you know, overall what you see? Do you see these same correlations like in your clientele that's coming in? Is that
it's actually a good thing for my business. It's weird saying that because I mean, majority of our clients are in the USA, and
right?
They're overweight, but yeah, I think it comes down to lifestyle and how they're brought up as well. If you look at the 5 blue zones around the world,
right?
You know, if you look at their lifestyle, they live longer. They have no chronic diseases. They're just eating more fiber. They're eating more protein. They're eating seafood. They're not eating processed food. They're just walking. They're more active. They're less stressful.
Well, I also think you said look at their lifestyle. I don't want to say I resent it because that's a big overstatement. It bothers me that every time we talk about the blue zones, which is justifiable and very, very interesting and important, we always go to dietary stuff. And I say, like, how about we look, because dietarily the blue zones, they don't really have a common theme. The common theme being that they don't eat a lot of processed food. Okay, I'll take that back. That's very true. They don't eat, you know, store-bought packaged goods, and they don't eat fast food. But there's plenty of there's like more of a meat heavy thing in Costa Rica and legumes, and there's, you know, it's certainly almost exclusively fish based in Okinawa, and then you look at that part of I forgot which part of Loma Linda, California, that it's another one of those. Seventh-day Adventist really is the reason why that part of California exploded with health. One of the things they absolutely, it's 2 big factors, is everyone has a sense of purpose in that community. They don't feel detached and disparate like everyone in large, you know, developed countries does feel. And everyone has some sense of faith. And I'm not like going to be a Bible beater here, but there's a collective agreement from a communal standpoint of life having purpose and meaning. And I don't want to talk about generations before I was born, but I don't think that the West, by and large, we have this sense of us having purpose and meaning. We're just this part of a binary code that exists, you know, like we're one of these meaningless things, these bits of information that is out there.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Europe, and I lived in Canada for 10 years, and I lived in Dubai for a year, and now I'm in Miami for the last 3 months. It's completely, the American culture is different. It's you know, you can just see it on the street. I mean, with the safety and the gun culture, the homelessness. I know that has a lot of positives too, but it's a completely different culture to Dubai, that's for sure. I was living in Dubai for a year. It's so clean, it's so safe. It's no crime there, no homeless, but again, it's just different cultures.
Americans are extreme, and unfortunately, extremities go in many directions. You know, it's like, and you're exactly right. One of the things, I mean, but there's also, it's worth pointing out, America is about 400 different cultures, depending on where you're at. You know, the culture of Miami is wildly different than if you were to just go to an hour north in Florida. It's a whole different ball. Yeah. Whereas, you know, and in Texas is like 10 countries in one state. It's like not 10 places, it's the different culture. It's West Texas and the oil fields it's not the same planet as Austin, Texas. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's worth saying, but I do think it's hard. One of the things I think that even in places like Miami, Los Angeles, San Francisco, we look at the perceived notion of what the culture is from our idea from sitting back, because it's almost like being in New York City when it's busy, being in Los Angeles or Chicago. It's almost like watching a TV show. It's not like being a part of something that exists, because it's such overwhelming stimulation, right? And you would get the sense that people are angry and hateful and blah 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 and blah. The reality is if you guys happen to be stuck in an airport together and you're talking with that same person that you just saw walk by in the subway and you think is angry, and the reality is like if you took the time to actually talk to each other, most people are pretty nice and really are caring and concerned. It's just that we live in this kind of synthesized world where it's like it's so hard to do that. I always ask people, it's like people say people are such jerks and blah blah blah, and the big city's so hard. I go, like, I was born and raised in Los Angeles, and I go to all my friends wherever they live, and even in the most dense urban populations in America, I go, really do me a favor. Think back on your whole life. How many times can you actively remember someone being outwardly mean and horrible to you? You can probably count it on one hand. But the times that someone holds the door for you, the time that someone says, God bless you, a random stranger after you sneeze, the time that someone offered you their seat, you just let that go right through. The thousands and thousands and thousands of times that happens, you just let that go right through your brain to nowhere. But it's very easy to kind of remember this small curated collection of times when people were jerks, because it sucks. It sucks so much. It's so extreme.
Yeah, I was curious too, Davey. Just I know we're coming up on time here in a moment, but I wanted to get one more kind of anecdote from you, just from your perspective. We were talking just now about different cultures, things of that nature. I'm curious, just kind of high level. Again, I'm sure you can get pretty granular, but if you were to pick, 2 or 3 areas in the world and compare and contrast the female psyche, like the American woman coming in to see you, and I know we're generalizing here, versus the woman from Dubai or the woman from Ireland or what a part in Europe. Is there anything that you see different? Yeah, again, we're generalizing a little bit, but just at a high level, and just how they think either about their current situation or the solutions, and just what are you picking up there? I'm just curious the differences across different areas of the world.
Good question, Joe. Gosh, I think the mindset around investing in themselves is, I see way more in America. Like, I grew up in Ireland, like, just kind of, we didn't know what investing in oneself was about. But I think women in, not that there's nothing wrong with my culture in Ireland, but this is why one of the reasons I left Ireland, for more opportunity and be around successful people. There's way more opportunity in North America, Canada, USA. But the mindset around investing in their health and themselves in USA is on another level. Dubai as well, UAE is another level in terms of their country anyway. Most of our clients come from USA and UAE and Canada, Australia. We don't have many clients anymore from certain European countries. It's just a different mindset around investing. It sure is. And Americans have way more access to credit. You guys have ridiculous. You're in debt. It's crazy. Like, they don't have access to credit much in Europe.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah. Do you see the social pressures? Are they different? I'm wondering about that too. Like, as far as either to be healthy or to be kind of superwoman, is there a lot of external pressures on the female clientele in, say, Europe versus America or Australia, or maybe another country that comes to mind? Is there any difference?
Yeah, great question again. I think maybe in North America there's more pressure on women to look a certain way, because maybe they've access to more social media, or they're comparing themselves to Hollywood figures, or I think in Europe they're less stressed about their body. They've less body dysmorphia, I think. Okay. In America it's higher for sure. There's pressure to look skinny or look like a certain celebrity or Hollywood star. In America, yeah, definitely. There's more. I see that more here.
Well, I want to look like Mike Catherwood, so I mean, I can definitely appreciate where they come from, and that's why
I hate to admit this in front of Davey. It's all surgery. And
what age are you, Mike? If you don't mind
45.
asking.
I'll be 46 in a couple weeks.
Good for you, man. Thank you. What's the secret?
Everybody always says that, and I first off, I'm flattered, but B, it's genetics, because my parents both treat their bodies like absolute garbage cans, and they're both alive and perfectly cognizant. And my dad's 83, he did chemo 5 times in the last 2 years. He's perfectly healthy. He's super fat and perfectly perfect like head of hair and clear skin. I don't know. It's like I said, I'm Mexican Irish, right down the middle, like immigrant culture on both sides, and I think it's just you can't keep it down. You know, it's like a very kind of like hardworking blue collar. You're not going to stop it kind of culture.
Good stuff, guys. I appreciate you guys jumping on today. I want to see just, Davey, anything first, we can go with you. Any closing thoughts, comments? We know, we'll put in the show notes kind of where people can find you, but just curious to any other closing thoughts or comments maybe we didn't have a chance to get to yet.
No, it was good to connect with everyone, and it's always good to have an open and honest, raw conversation about not just women's health, but overall health. I'm on a mission to just make as many people as possible healthy and happy and have longevity. Everyone deserves that.
Sure. Yeah, appreciate that. Mike, anything from you? Closing thoughts? Or
I encourage especially women out there of all ages, reach out to Davey and to other coaches in that arena, because it's certainly, I think, still stigmatized, even not to that extreme extent, just the idea of like pumping iron and doing these things. Like, this is not only is this okay for you to do, it's vital for you if you really want to have that optimal lifestyle that you dream of. This is not something that's relegated to a small segment of middle-aged men that, like listen to Joe Rogan a lot. This is for you. Like, bioidentical hormones are not only perfectly okay, it's really quite awesome. And as Davey pointed out earlier, there's myriad health benefits. It's not just an aesthetic thing. It's not just a vanity thing. So
right.
Check it out.
Good stuff. Well, appreciate you guys jumping on. We'll have this available not only on YouTube, but all of our audio outlets as well. And thanks again, guys.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, guys. Take care.